Peace, y'all. What's good? Um, Today I want to talk a little bit about the differences between what's dragons and what's reptilians. Because right now the whole dragon conversation is popular. A lot of people in the collective are like resonating with dragons. A lot of the messages with the people doing readings and all types of stuff are coming up as people are dragons and shit like that. And I'm here to kind of explain what all the fuck that shit is. Okay, I'm gonna start from the beginning. Okay, I'm not gonna get too in depth, but I'm gonna give a little explanation on what's what. It's gonna make a little more sense than what I've heard around, because a lot of people say a lot of things. Okay, you gotta take things with a grain of salt. Then you gotta do your own research, right? So when you hear my stuff, you don't just believe that 100%. Do your own research. Like, where am I getting this information from? All that stuff, because it's out there. You know, I have to make shit up. The truth already crazy enough. You don't have to make shit up. But okay, so I'm not starting from the beginning. This is already when the universe exists and shit like that. All right, you have Tiamat. Okay, Tiamat. Tiamat was a planet that existed in between like Mars and Jupiter. Okay, and it was big. Okay, close to the size of Jupiter or not. It was, and these things aren't as big as science be telling. All right, so take that with a grain of salt. Okay, because you got scientists like Wilhelm Reich and Eric Dollard and shit, and they already show observations of how the sun is closer. So take what resonates. Things are big, but the scales they be giving us light years and stuff like that, bro, please. Anyway, so there was a planet, boom, and what happened was a planet called Nibiru, and this is at a time before there were beings there, like what people would consider the Anunnaki. This is before they were on that planet, okay? Because the Anunnaki are hybrids themselves, okay? And we'll get to that in this story. But Nibiru smashed into Tiamat, okay? Now, what happened because of that is Tiamat smashed into many pieces, okay? Which created the asteroid belt, okay? Which created comets, all right? Which also created the Earth as we know it today, okay? So on that planet Tiamat, before that collision, okay, there were beings, all right, that already existed, okay, huge, humongous beings, all right. What they say, the giants, right, and then they got petrified. That was all on Tiamat, okay. So these beings, all right, these giant beings that existed, some were reptilians, some were like amphibious and insect. There's different types of beings that existed on Tiamat, okay. And what happened is petrification and other sorts of events like that, okay. When these cataclysmic events happen, okay, to these giant beings, okay, the things that survived were the parasites within these beings, okay. So, like, for example, shit that they would call like dinosaurs or whatever, these giant motherfucking things, like these big ass sea creatures and stuff like that, those are parasites from inside bigger beings, okay. So what people would call the reptilians, okay, are evolved parasites, okay, from the bloodlines of those beings that evolved naturally on Tiamat, okay. So the reptilians are natural to that planet. They evolved like naturally. Okay, they eventually became what they became. Okay, then that event happened. Okay, and the higher councils of those beings. Okay, from that realm, what happened was basically some of them left to different star systems, which you would call it. Some went to like the Sirius star system, some went like to the Lyran, right? Some eventually ended up on the Biru later on and stuff. But they were going to different systems, okay? Because they knew that this event was gonna happen, okay? So what happens? They end up going to other planets and other shit happens, okay? And then they end up Sirius star system, right? That's where Alpha Draconis, all this stuff. That's where they end up going different places, okay? And they mingle with different creatures because they weren't the only creatures that evolved naturally in their realm, okay? And over time, right, they like, mated with other beings and stuff like that. And then they created these beings that are like, the serious, amphibious motherfucking mermaids and shit. And then like the Biru with the Anunnakis and shit. These are like different hybrid reptilian and other beings over time through different motherfucking realms and stuff and different things that happen because there are a lot of wars fought and other shit, all right, that happen because wars and all this shit. This isn't new to this planet. Like this, that concept comes from the beings that fucking brought it back here. Okay, so some of those beings ended up coming back to Earth. Okay, and stuff like that throughout different time periods. Okay, so it wasn't just Anunnaki. Okay, that's why there's motherfuckers under the sea. That's why there's motherfuckers inside the earth. Okay, that's why there's motherfuckers running the surface level. Okay, there's different races and different families and different species of shit over time. Okay, but what happened? Okay, so in the ancient world, dragon, right? Dragon means comet. Okay, a dragon's a comet. Okay, so when you're talking about the feathered serpent, okay, the serpent's the tail, the fucking comet, and the feathers is the flight. Okay, right. So a lot of people like to associate the reptilians and the dragons. Okay, but dragons are comets. Okay, even though there are physical beings that will represent dragons, right? Like you got leviathans and all those shits, right, inside the water, for example. Okay, but dragon is actually comets. Okay, so when they say Tiamat's a dragon, right, Earth's a dragon, that's because we're a piece of a bigger fucking planet. Okay, we end up flying off. Okay, but we also collided with another fucking planet, which is Venus. Okay, which is another story. Okay, which is why the fuck we don't move no more. Okay, and it's all written down in their motherfucking text. That's what they say. Okay, so none of this shit is my fucking opinion. But so a comet is a dragon. Okay, and Earth's a dragon, right? Because it's a piece of a fucking planet. Because a comet is a piece of a fucking planet. Okay, and why is that important? Okay, because when you see motherfucking like fraternities, right, like the cult of the dragons and shit like that, or you see the Tartarian shit, or you see things with dragons, especially like the Asians and the very colorful dragons and stuff like that, right? What that represents is the different tails, right, of the comets, because there's different colors based on the different minerals, right, or chemistry that's going on within that comet, right, and then the fucking atmosphere, because actually all those things are within the atmosphere, okay? Because science says that shit too, because there's something called what's the sun's atmosphere? I forget the name, but that goes all the way to the end of the solar system. So everything's within the atmosphere, right? And the atmosphere is what's making the colors, right? How we perceive them, right? So because some of these reptilians that come from Tiamat feel like the originals here. They feel like the protectors of the dragon, right? They feel like they're supposed to be here and they're supposed to rule this, right? So, draconian and dragon are two different things, okay? Even though the Latin definition of, Draco is dragon, okay? It's dragon because they feel like they're the protectors and owners of this motherfucking realm, which is a dragon, okay? So why does the collective feel so in tune with dragons right now? Okay, because the dragon's a motherfucking comet. Okay, so your ancestors are from the fucking cosmos. Okay, so you are in tune with the dragon. Okay, but it's not what you think. Okay, because what they did with that information is they boxed it in. Okay, that's why books are a fucking box. Okay, because they're trying to trap motherfucking information. Okay, that's why their flag is a fucking square and then it has a fucking dragon for Tartar. All right, because they're fucking boxing in that energy. Okay, which is really a cosmic energy, but they're talking about this dragon and how they control that through their motherfucking matrix. Okay, so the difference between a draconian and a fucking dragon is motherfucking, one is cosmic and one is a motherfucking parasite that's evolved over time. Okay, and not everyone is bad. So there's good reptilians, just like there's bad people, good people, and then good and bad doesn't even exist, right? So we're talking about a vibration and a frequency, right? So there's high vibrational and low vibrational, because that's all the fuck there is, right? You're either doing things that's high vibrational or low vibrational, and then you face your fucking karma or dharma based on those motherfucking sequences of events, you know? And that's the motherfucking hierarchy of how these rules work, and there's nothing you can really do about it. It's just working within that framework is how you'll be able to grow, because life's just a game. Okay, and that's how you play. That's how you level up. That's like the cheat code. Okay, you keep slaying demons within you. Okay, and keep doing high vibrational things. And the more faith and more trust you have, the more the freaking things come to you, because you're a magnet. All right, so the more you seek, the more it's like a magnet, right? So, right, but the more you just sit back, you let it come to you, right? You're a magnet. You attract. Okay, boom. And this is a time of building, so I don't want to come over here and destroy anything. Okay, but there's other beings too, not just the reptilians out here calling shots, making plays. That's what the war in the heavens is about, outside of the collisions that's happened within the planetary bodies and shit like that. Okay, because you know, you got the pyramid wars, you got different wars that happen in the spiritual realm all the time. Okay, but specifically this video is to explain that there's a difference between the dragon lineages, okay, and the dragon bloodlines which they're trying to claim. Okay, so they're claiming bloodlines that literally, like, when you look at, you could go back to White Huns, the Scythians, you do all that stuff, and you could see all the dragon cults and all the in their societies and all this stuff, right? That goes all the way back to basically what you would call Hyperborea, the North Pole, right? Because that's where motherfuckers really landed. Okay, and then over time they came down like that, right? Through the Americas, through, you know, Europe's, and then down. Okay, that's how they find European shit older than African shit. Okay, when it comes to the mummies or like artifacts and stuff like that. Okay, and that has to do with when they talk about the dark skinned Europeans, the originals and stuff like that. Okay, and when it comes to that whole subject, okay, Native Americans, you know, dark skin doesn't mean what people are saying it means. Okay, and then for the white people thinking they in control and stuff like that, like, seriously, you know, I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Banker, right? I think it's called The Banker, right? Where it's like you got the two black guys and they're like They hired a white guy to be the face of the fucking operation and stuff like that. There's so much truth in that. It's like ridiculous, right? But anyway, people they just trying to empower themselves any way they can and stuff like that, you know. And as far as the way I'm talking, I haven't seen no Spanish person trying to take over the world, bro. So I'm in a unique position to be like, you know, a bunch of people have tried that shit, you know. So it and anyway, I resonate with the soul more than the body anyway, right? So if people aren't even identifying as the body first when they're communicating with me, then there's no such thing as it's like rank and file when it comes to like the way I think, because once you reach a certain rank, you're just like shoulder to shoulder with the gods, you know. So it's no like I outrank you, you outrank me, but that's some low vibrational shit to me. It'd just be like, all right, you know, whatever. Anyway, I strayed way away from my original point. But that was like I was just trying to give a brief synopsis on the difference between these things, you know, because I see a lot of people associating it because there are a lot of associations within the language that they've created over time. But through the originals, they had their own meanings to these things, okay, and it's very deep. And in this time, I get it. You know, there's a lot of people doing stuff. They're like OG with this shit, and then they see the new people coming in. They're like, what the hell, you know? That should even happen to me, like getting all these messages, dragging you from the dragon bloodlines. And that, it kind of resonates with me deep because I got a tattoo of a dragon on my back. And I got that for free on my birthday. And that's before I was into any of this stuff. I didn't know about it. So I was stamped. And I've been stamped. And it's just something that I've personally just been going through in my life, that a lot of the stuff that you see in Hollywood when it comes to like, oh, you know, humiliation rituals and all these weird things to be initiated and shit. Yo, like, I don't know how, but the universe initiated my ass. And I've gone through all that shit without needing no organization or fraternity or no group or none of that. And I've had to do shit so solo that it almost like formed my mind to think like, damn, like you're supposed to do this whole shit solo. But nah, I've gotten a lot of help on the way, man. And it's crazy to think about. It's really crazy to think about how they like misconstrue the information that's given to us, you know, by the ones that freaking just knew. They just knew. And it's very important in this time that we grow together. Okay. And I'm not saying forget. Forgiving always for yourself. I'm not saying forget. But know yourself, okay? Forget the noise, but do your research, okay? Because maybe someone's saying something and it just resonates with you and then it's not that, okay? Or maybe you from certain bloodlines and you have to find these things out, okay? But a dragon is a motherfucking celestial body, okay? That's why in the movie Dragonheart, when the dragon dies, his soul goes to the stars. He's a shooting fucking star. He's a motherfucking comet, okay? Anyway, yeah, have a blessed day. Blessed day, because blessed is actually a curse word. I apologize. I will never curse nobody, right? Be less, all right? None of that, all right? Have a blessed day, y'all. Blessed night, wherever y'all at. Enjoy. Glad to see y'all. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Till the next time. Peace.